thank you for watching my channel today. My name is Sarah and my channel is called Your True Shelf. And today we are filming a haul video, which I haven't done for a really long time. I think it's been probably several months since I did a haul video, apart from when I went to London and did a book crawl through several bookshops, and then I did film as part of that vlog. I think I filmed the haul of the books that I got, so I'm not going to include those books in the video today, but if you do want to see what I got on that, then you just have to watch my book shopping in London vlog from October. The books that I'm talking about today are books that first of all are the ebooks and the Kindle books, which I will insert pictures of in the corner, and then I'm going to move on to my physical books. I've got a big stack of books which are balancing on a chair over there, which I will do when it's time to talk about the physical books. The other thing is it's quite dark and gloomy today, so it may be that the lighting isn't the best, and I apologise for that, but I don't have a ring light, so if it's crappy lighting then I just have to put up with it. And then the final thing is my hair's a bit darker because my hair was getting quite dry and my hairdresser wanted me to have a little time without putting too much blonde in it to give it a bit of a breather. So my hair is a little bit darker, which you can probably see. This is more closer to my natural colour. But without further ado, after nearly 2 minutes of talking, let's talk about the actual books that I hauled in the last few months. So the first one is an audiobook, which is Maame by Jessica George. This one I've wanted to read for quite a while, and then I managed to pick it up in one of the Audible sales. So this is about a girl who is called Maame by her mum, but her actual name is Maddie. And her mum, I think, is quite absent from her life, and Maddie is a carer for her dad, who I'm not sure if he has Parkinson's, but I think he has some sort of degenerative disease like Parkinson's. And she doesn't really have much time for herself and her friends and her own dreams and things, and I think it's her kind of trying to make a new role for herself outside of the role of carer, and trying to expand her life. Then I bought on Kindle, this was on the 99p deals, which I do look at, but I try not to buy them very regularly because I don't want to have a massive TBR stack on my Kindle. And this was Happy, Sexy, Millionaire by Stephen Bartlett. I'm not a massive fan of the title, but he is one of the entrepreneurs who is on Dragon's Den, which is like a kind of business investment show in the UK, if you're not from the UK. And he was a millionaire. I think he's like in his late 20s now, and he's been a millionaire for quite a long time, and he was kind of a bit disruptive and not very sort of good at school, but he obviously had a lot of sort of business sense. And I've seen him talk on different clips on Instagram and stuff, and he has a podcast where he interviews different people, but his ethos is very much like not to forget about the sort of attributes of being a good person and of developing yourself and your connections with others, because he's basically saying if you just have money and you don't have any of those other things, you're not going to be happy no matter how much money you have. So it's sort of I guess it's like a kind of personal development kind of book, but also I guess talking about his story, which I thought might be quite interesting. Then I bought on Kindle again, I bought Legendborn by Tracy, Deon, is it? Yeah, Tracy Deon. This is a book that one of my friends in book club recommended to me, and then again I got it on a Kindle 99p deal. This is YA fantasy, and I don't know the names of the characters, but I know that the female protagonist is to get away from her hometown life, and I think her mum might have been killed in an accident, and she gets a place at a school, I think it's a residential school, and on her first night on campus she witnesses some magic, and the person who did the magic tries to wipe her memory, but it doesn't work, and this awakens in her own sort of magical abilities, and also links in with the fact that a magical person was next to her mum in the hospital when she died. So there's different connections that are forming between finding out about what happened to her mum, plus her discovering her own magic. And I just thought this would be I do like fantasy and I do like YA, And I also like stuff that's set in academic institutions as well. So I thought this would combine all of those, and it would be a fun and interesting read. And it's also got really high reviews as well. Next, I bought This Tender Land by William Kent Kreuger. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, Karen, I heard you talking about this book, and or at least this author. I think. Tell me if I'm not right, and I've just made that up. And this is about 4 kids who are in the time of the Great Depression in America. And I think they're running away from something like an orphanage or a school. They've done something bad, 2 of the boys, I think, and they're taking another 2 children with them voluntarily. And they steal a canoe and escape. And they're trying to make it to the Mississippi River to set up a new life by themselves. So it's sort of like an adventure through a summer, but I'm guessing that there'll definitely be some obstacles on the way, seeing as they're children and runaways. And also I think it has a kind of epic modern classic kind of feel, but again, very high ratings on Storygraph, so I'm excited to read that, and I haven't read anything by him before. The next one is an audiobook, which I'm really excited about. I saw Brene from The Left-Handed Reader talk about this book when she had it in a library hall, and I think she gave it back before she'd read it, or she couldn't read it in time. But I saw the cover and I thought, well, this looks interesting. The US cover I much prefer to the UK cover. And then I looked into what it was about, and I thought, oh my god, that sounds amazing, I really want to read it. And it's North Woods by Daniel Mason. I really don't like the UK cover at all, but I'll put a picture of the UK cover. So this is about a house, and it follows the inhabitants over many generations that live in this house. So it tells the stories of all the different people who pass through the house over time and the land that the house is set on. In the audiobook, there are many audio narrators because each story of the house guests is done by a different narrator, which I think is a really cool idea, especially if there's lots of families over time. It will help you sort of separate, I think, who is who. And it's about the connections between place and people through time and the land that they're on. And I just think that sounds fascinating. And again, it's very highly rated. I think that it said that Daniel Mason has been a runner-up for the Pulitzer Prize before, which also bodes well. So I've not read anything by him before. I think this is his 4th book, but I'm really, really excited to listen to this one. I think it sounds amazing, and I'm going to be prioritising that on audio. And then the final one in non-physical copy is another one that I'm really excited about, which is The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. So I read Cutting for Stone when it came out many years ago now, which was his first book, and I absolutely adored it. I'd probably say, I've only read it once, but I'd probably say it's a contender for one of my favourite books ever. And so when this one came out, it's a massive book. I would say it's at least probably 800 pages. And I did get this one on Kindle because I thought that it would be more practical to carry it around than having a big 800 plus page hardback in my bag, which will probably get damaged and stuff. So I got it on Kindle, and from what I understand, it's set in Kerala in southern India, and it's about 3 generations of people one member of each generation of their family has died by drowning. Apparently there's lots of water in Kerala, and then we're focusing on a 12-year-old girl whose parent has just died, and she's sent away by boat to marry someone who's 40, and so it's her wedding day. And then it says that she turns into the matriarch of the family and witnesses huge change in India. So it's a kind of a ode to the people who've gone before her, but also about the change that she's witnessing. And it sounds fantastic. I know that there's medicine involved. So Abraham Verghese is a doctor in real life, and there was definitely medical themes through Cutting for Stone. Like, it was talking a lot about childbirth and fistulas that can form in childbirth. And so this one I think has medical things in as well, but I don't know in what area. So that it will be really interesting, and I just already know that I love his writing, so I'm very excited for that. So that's all the non-physical books that I got, and then I'm just going to try and carry this big pile of physical books, which is on the chair next to me, and tell you about those. The first one is one that I bought in December when it came out, obviously, because this is the most up-to-date book in the series that we all know and love. And this is Heartstopper number 5, which is as beautiful as ever. It's so nice to like look at my shelf and just see all of the Heartstoppers next to each other. But Nick's definitely going off to university, and that's all I know about this one. I don't want to know any more because I don't want any spoilers. Then for Christmas, I only actually got one book that I hadn't read. I got 2 books that I'd read and wanted to own, which I'll come to in a second, one of them. But this was a surprise present from one of my lovely friends, and I am super excited to read this. This is Atlas of the Heart by Brene Brown. This is a really gorgeous hardback edition, and I'll just show you inside. It's got lots of photography and quotes and things like that in as well. So this is just the first page I opened it to. So some of the pages have photography, some of them have quotes like that. So it's a book which is really attractive to look at as well as amazing to read. So Brene Brown has a PhD and she's a university professor, and she teaches about shame, and she describes herself as like a shame researcher, but she also talks about like so many amazing things about courage and about vulnerability and about relationships, and I love her work so much, and I love watching her speak. If you're not sure if you know anything about her, if you want to know anything about her, watch her TED Talk on, I think it's the most watched TED Talk of all time, because then you'll kind of get a flavour for what she does. That's quite heavy. I'm looking forward to reading this one a lot, so thank you very much for this. Another book that I got for Christmas was my Secret Santa from my book club, which I already read this book. It's part of a series, but I wanted to own the whole series, and now I do. So I have this series here, which is by Tsitsi Dangarembga. The first one is Nervous Conditions, then we have The Book of Not, and then we have This Mournable Body. So I have already read Nervous Conditions and The Book of Not, so I listened to them on audio, and I really, really enjoyed them, and I wanted to own the trilogy. So these two, the first two, are read by the same narrator, and the narrator is from Zimbabwe, which is where the books are set. Then, for some weird reason, the third book has a completely different narrator with an American accent, which I'm kind of peed off about. So I wanted to read the third book rather than listen to it, because it didn't make any sense to me why they chose to do that. The first one I got from my Secret Santa. The second two I managed to find secondhand copies of online. And so I've now got the complete set, which I'm really happy about. I was very lucky in December because my friend Jo Smith, who is a commenter on booktube, she doesn't have her own channel, but she comments a lot on people's videos, and we became friends that way, and we've done tons of buddy reads together. And she's come over, she lives in America, she's from the UK, and she came over for the second year running this year, and I got to see her again, which was really lovely, and we went book shopping together. And so we got 2 books which we both bought because we want to do them as buddy reads, and I got 1 book that I just bought. So I am not a short story collection reader, right? I do occasionally read them, but I'm never drawn to them. And then this book, I just picked it up. I didn't even know it was short stories. I started reading the first one and immediately just thought I have to buy this collection. So this is Intimacies by Lucy Caldwell. So there's 11 stories in here. She is an Irish writer. So it says, in 11 stories, Intimacies exquisitely charts the steps and missteps of young women trying to find their place in the world. From a Belfast student ordering illegal drugs online to end an unwanted pregnancy, to a young mother's brush with mortality, and from a Christmas Eve walking the city streets when everything seems possible, to a night flight from Canada which could change a life irrevocably. These are stories of love, loss and exile, of new beginnings and lives lived away from home. So yeah, I'm really bit excited to give this one a good read. And then the other 2 books are both non-fiction. So we were browsing Waterstones for ages, and then we both sort of ended up in the historical non-fiction, which isn't a section that I've ever really spent any time in Waterstones. But I saw both of these books and really wanted to read them. So I'm really interested in ancient history, and this book is Ancestors by Alice Roberts. And this is a book where she looks at 7 different burials, and she goes from Paleolithic times to the Iron Age, delving into the history of each burial, and how science can basically tell us a lot more about that time period. And there's a little quote at the beginning which says, "This book is about belonging, about walking in ancient places in the footsteps of the ancestors. It's about reaching back in time to find ourselves and our place in the world." And I think that sounds fascinating. Alice Roberts is a professor and clearly very knowledgeable on the topic, so this will be very interesting. And the other one is more recent history, but also sounds extremely interesting, and I really like the cover of this one. This is called Vagabonds by Oskar Jensen, and life on the streets of 19th century London. So this one is set in the late Georgian and Victorian period, and it says it's long been filtered through theatrical visions of its great chronicles like Dickens, Mayhew, Gustave Doré. But now this radical social history shows us the buzzing cosmopolitan city at street level. From beggars and thieves to musicians and missionaries, porters and hawkers to sex workers and street criers, Oskar Jensen unites an unprecedented breadth of original research and first-hand accounts to tell Londoners' stories in their own words, which also sounds really fascinating. So, and there are a few pictures in here as well. So, yeah, not very many, but a few. And then the very last few are ones that I bought from a mixture of Wild and of books and vintage. So I had some vintage credit from clothes that I'd sold, which I thought I might use on books. And I also keep seeing some people get a lot of books from World of Books. I only bought from them once before and I was quite disappointed with the condition, but I thought I'm just going to give them another try, and I am actually glad that I did because most of the books are in really good condition. So these are the ones that I got for like very cheaply, but ones that have all been on my wish list for a while. So I've got two classics. The first one is The Tenant of Wildfell Hall by Anne Bronte, which I will read with Joe in the future at some point. Now I remember it might have been Alice from Alice and the Giant Bookshelf. I remember people saying, I think it was Alice, you're best to go into this book without knowing what it's about. So I don't know what it's about, and I am not going to read the blurb, but I don't think you really need to necessarily read the blurb with classics. And the second classic I got, it has got the TV front cover, is The Lady's Paradise by Emile Zola. So I watched this on BBC years and years ago. I don't even know. Let's see what year this book came out, because that's probably the year the TV series came out. 2012. So that would have been when I watched the TV series. And I really loved it. And I've wanted to read this book ever since then. And again, me and Joe are going to read this together. We both want to read this book. And so that's what we're going to do. It'll be interesting to see how closely it actually ties in with the TV series. But the TV series is basically about a department store, which is one of the first of its kind, and some of the people who work there, and the owner and his life and things like that. And there's a romance in it in the TV show, and I really, really enjoyed it, so I'm looking forward to that too. The next one is a book that it's a memoir that I wanted to read because over Christmas Sam and I watched The Tender Bar on Prime, and it was an excellent film. I absolutely loved it. And it said at the beginning based on the book, and I was like, okay, so as soon as I knew that there's a book, I'm interested even more. And then when I loved the film so much, I really wanted to read the book. And this is The Tender Bar by J R Moehringer. He grew up with his mum. His dad was a radio DJ. He was quite successful, but he was very much an absent father. He'd turn up very occasionally. He wasn't a nice man. I think he was like doing a lot of drinking and gambling and stuff like that. And so his mum doesn't have enough money to look after him by herself, so she moves back into her parents' house. And their uncle, JR's uncle, takes over as kind of like the father figure for him, and he owns a bar. And the bar, he also loves reading and like reading classics, and so he sort of educates his nephew as well as the nephew spending time in the bar, and he's kind of teaching him like how to be a good man and that kind of stuff. And it was just such a really, really lovely film that I'm really was happy to find a copy of this on World of Books. I have a YA book, which is Clap When You Land by Elizabeth Acevado. I love the cover of this one, and I've wanted to read this for absolutely ages. This is written in verse. So I read The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevado, which is also written in verse, and I've got The Fire on High on audio. So I've got a few of her books now. This is about a secret family. So these girls have the same dad. One of them lives in the Dominican Republic. One of them lives in New York, I believe. And neither of them know that their dad has another family. And the dad dies in a plane crash, I think, at the beginning of the book when he's on his way to visit the daughter in the Dominican Republic. And then both sisters actually end up finding out about each other and have this new sort of bond relationship and things over their grief. So it sounds interesting, and like I say, beautiful cover, and it's always fun reading a book written in verse. It's something a little bit different. The next book I have is Father of the Rain by Lily King. So I recently reread Writers and Lovers by Lily King, which I love. I've given it 5 stars twice. And I read one of her other books called Euphoria, which I found kind of disappointing. And I've wanted to try Father of the Rain for ages, and I now found this copy. I just started reading the blurb, and I got 2/3 of the way through and thought this is going to tell me something which is a big spoiler, so I stopped. But the bit that I've read is about an 11-year-old girl called Daly. And her parents split up when she's 11. Her mum sort of thrives after the relationship splits up, and her dad hits the drink and becomes quite an unpleasant person. And the man that she knew as her father is kind of falling apart. And she goes away to college, and she meets a guy there and becomes like a successful young woman. And then it was like there was a but, and I thought I don't want to read the but because it's going to tell me too much of what happens in the book, so I don't know any more than that. But I can see some themes a little bit similar to Writers and Lovers, because there's like loss of a parent and falling in love and having gone through college and everything like that. So this is one that I'm really keen to try quickly because I loved Writers and Lovers so much. And then we're down to the final 2. One is a book which I have read, another book by this author, and absolutely loved it, so I've wanted to try and recreate that love for it, and that is The Winter Sea by Susanna Kearsley. So I listened to Mariana on Audible, and it's one of my best audiobooks I've ever listened to. And this is another book with like a kind of a time travel sort of element. So this says, it's getting a bit dark, it's getting even darker. It sounds a little bit like oh god, what are they called? Outlander. Sounds a little bit like Outlander. So 1707, on the passing of her uncaring uncle, a distant relative offers orphan Sophia Patterson what she longs for most, a home. Slane's castle on the rugged Scottish coast holds many comforts, but it also harbours danger as rebels conspire to bring the exiled James Stuart to Scotland to reclaim his throne. Present day, enchanted by the ruins of the castle, Carrie McClelland settles in the nearby village, hoping to turn this all but forgotten story into her next novel. But her writing takes on a strange life of its own, and with each new chapter she uncovers the secrets of the past in a sweeping tale of love, loyalty and ultimate betrayal. So if it's like Mariana, basically the author is going to be writing about this historical place, but she is probably Sophia, the young girl, that was probably one of her past lives, and she's slipping between lives. So that's what happens in Mariana, which I loved. So that's that one. And then the very last one is a book which I actually thought I owned on Kindle, but it turns out I didn't. So I must have been like wanting to buy it and then never actually buying it. And the reason that I really wanted to read this book is because it turns out that I really love books that are set in restaurants. So this is Kitchens of the Great Midwest by J Ryan Stradal. Don't know how you say his surname. This is a hardback. This is an ex-library copy, and it's still in the library cover, but I really like the cover of this one. So who is Eva Thorvald? To her father, a chef, she's a pint-sized recipe tester, and the love of his life. To the chilly chow-down contestants of Cook County, Illinois, she's a fire-eating demon. To the fashionable foodie goddess of supper clubs, she's a wanton threat. She's an enigma, a secret ingredient that no one can figure out. One day Eva will surprise everyone. Sounds good. I remember there being a lot of buzz about this when it came out, like 10 years ago maybe? Not a bad guess, 2015. So yeah, nearly 10 years ago. So yeah, that is probably 6 months worth of books. Last year, I've got my total now. Last year I bought 53 books, which is a lot. it's about a book a week, isn't it? So it's a lot, and it's obviously affected my TBR numbers, but it's about a third of the number that I bought the year before, to put it into perspective. And I'm hoping I'm going to shrink that number even further down this year. And I know I've already bought 10 books this year, but they are books that I really want to read. I'm not just like randomly buying things, which I've done in the past. So anyhow, they are the books. If you've read any of them and you think I should prioritise them above other things, then please let me know. And I will be back with another video soon. I hope you have a lovely week. Bye.